So today we're going to talk about a specific person today. And with all going on in the world, I'm sure I could have found something to talk about, but it's kind of the same old kind of stuff. And so I've recently found this gentleman's channel. And so I just kind of wanted to talk about it today. So today we're going to talk about a gentleman, like I said, I found on YouTube called, his name is Mr. Anton Daniels. Maybe some of y'all have heard of him. Maybe some of y'all watch his content. I don't know. Anyways, I found his content because he's fairly conservative. And I guess he was chiming in on some of the recent issues. And so I found him just, going through, reactions of current events. And I enjoyed his viewpoint. And then so I said, okay, let me see who this guy is, because hey, I liked his viewpoint and all that. So I said, okay, let me check him out. Check his YouTube page out and all that. And so I checked out his page, and it's a lot of it has to do with well, let me put it this way: he has 4 channels, okay, on YouTube right now. Okay, he has the Anton Daniels channel, which is a group channel for the most part with a moderator. That's not him. Then he has the Millionaire show that he does. That's just him on current events and different topics that he wants to talk about. And the Anton Daniels show is about current events and all that too. But I find that a lot of his content on the Anton Daniels show is dating, relationship related for the most part. The after show, his late night show, same thing. A lot of it has to do with relationships, men, women topics, the current events, those type of things. And then he has a personal YouTube page. I don't remember the name of it, but it's a personal page that basically is him kind of showing you behind the scenes and a little bit more personal. It's all focused on him. Every once in a while you'll see his wife. And it's just all about his kind of daily life and like that. And that's the channel I prefer, because like him, I like to get to know people. And I think when you have a channel like that, you kind of get to know the person better. He's a little more open, and Mr. Daniels is very open about what he thinks and how he feels and what he believes in. He's definitely not scared or fearful or anything like that. So we do that, and then and so that there's that personal page, which is the one I guess again I prefer. Like I said, all that's like daily life, like behind the scenes kind of stuff channel, which again I prefer. But what I find fascinating about Mr. Daniels is, and I know I'm sure never see this video, but what I find fascinating about Mr. Daniels and the people that are around him, that I've learned just by watching his various shows. Again, most of the topics I can kind of care less, because most of them don't apply, especially the relationships. Like, I've been married almost 30 years, so obviously I'm not looking for relationship advice, and I'm not into entertainment, that type of the culture. I'm not into any of that type of stuff, rappers and music and this, this person divorcing this person. And I understand he's doing all that for conversation pieces that lead into other things, and that's fine. There's definitely no hate involved in that. It's just not necessarily my cup of tea. But there are some things that are interesting to listen to other people's viewpoints, especially on the after show. I find as depending on who's on, cussing going on. Of course, I don't get into that. But again, that's how they speak. That's fine. No, whatever. I just don't get into it. But what I found interesting is that, especially in the after hour show, I think it's after hours. It's an after hour show. That's what it is. My fault. After hour show. That group is pretty consistent in most of the shows. At least the later ones, or the recent ones, should I say. And what I have found is they have a lot of camaraderie. And even though they disagree, they still get along. And they have a lot of camaraderie, for a group of people that live in, different parts of the country for the most part. And I always find that fascinating, how people can come together and have that kind of a relationship, where even though they might not meet in person that often, and I think they do meet and greets on occasion, that they don't meet in person, they're a tight group. Something obviously I don't have, because I really don't have any friends for real. And so I think that to see the camaraderie they have, and to see how tight they are as a group, is really cool. And I like Mr. Daniels. I like to get to know people. I like to talk to people. I like to meet them in person. I think that's how you get to really know people. And I like to conversate if I can find somebody that can have a decent conversation. And so, I bring this up because, and I use Mr. Daniels as an example, because of the fact of how he communicates. Two, he's very blunt about his views, and he doesn't equivocate. He doesn't change. He's steadfast on what he believes in, which, for respect, of course, in these days and times. And obviously he's smart, because he's a businessman. He's obviously wealthy. He's obviously successful. If you've watched his personal YouTube page, he's shown you basically his cars and where he lives, and he has a home in the suburbs, a home in downtown Detroit, and then he has a studio. All of which is cool. I think that's great. The Lord, and he'll be the first to admit, the Lord has blessed him. He treats people right. He tips. He's did an episode on tipping, and he gave us how he tips and why he tips the way he does. And he's about taking care of people, which I really like, and it really attracts people to him, because he said this in an episode, that he'll find somebody, and then for whatever reason they'll click, and then he'll I need to bring you in, I need to meet you, I need to talk to you, and he's already thinking how this person can help him, not only in his business, but if you click, he's also trying to see how you can benefit and how you can excel. And I really like that about him. I really like that he's real positive about people in general, and that if you click, he's already looking at ways that he can help you advance, help you reach your potential, potentially work for him depending on what you do, and be part of his brand, and I really like that about him, and I wish I knew people like that. Honestly, I wish I knew people like that. And he says he takes care of his people, that because they take care of him, and so he takes care of them. Of course, he's an employer, and from what I gather, most of the panel members, at least on the after hour show, are basically employees. And so he blesses them, he pays them. I don't know how much it is, it's not my business. But they're regulars, and they add to his brand, so he treats them like employees. And of course they have to do their part, just as an employee does. And I like that. And I like that they do these meet and greets and they get together. And that when, sometimes before the panel discussion gets really into whatever topics, current events or whatever they're talking about, you see some behind the scenes kind of talk, and you start to find out how they know each other and how long they've known each other and the relationship they have with one another, even though of course they don't all agree on everything, and all the different personalities on the panel. And I'm mainly talking about the after show, because the Anton Daniels show is constantly changing panel members. Every once in a while they'll have somebody from the after show on the panel on the Anton Daniels show, but for the most part it's regular rotation of different people. So for instance, I guess if I were to DM the moderator and say I want to be part of the Anton Daniels show panel, I'd be put on a waiting list, and eventually they would contact me and I could be on this panel. So that's fine. I bring this up, and I use Mr. Daniels as an example because of how people should treat people, even in business. He's very keen, very loyal to the people to the people that work for him or under him. Very loyal. And I like that, and I wish I had that. Obviously, as a government employee, I've never had that. And only a couple of times in my military career have I had somebody that was truly looking out for your best interest. Only a few times in my career. I can count them on one hand. And so when you see that, and you see it, I've never watched any of his shows live. I always watched them, after the fact. But when you see that on video, and you see the interaction, and you see the relationship, and you see, the camaraderie, it's like, wow, how great is that? How great is that? And I'd be lying if I didn't say that I was a little jealous, or and I wish I had it. I'd be lying if I didn't think that, or didn't come to my mind, or I didn't have that feeling. I'd be lying. And as saints, I know we're not supposed to have jealousy and all that stuff. I get all that. I'm just being transparent. And how I wish that I had a boss or somebody I was working for that looked out not only to make sure that you get your job done and do your job, but that really want to know you, get to know you, and really take care of you and make sure that you excel. I haven't really had that at all in my civilian career. At all so far. At all. And it's a real shame because, I'm in my early 50s, so, it's getting close to being too late. But I really look at that, and all the people, everybody on that panel is younger than me. I think Mr. Daniels might be in his 40s. But everybody on that panel is younger than me. But he's not only loyal, of course, to his wife and his daughter, but he's loyal to the people who he works with and work for him. He's loyal to his community. He's had episodes where, he's given back to his community. He didn't leave his community. He grew up in Detroit, stayed in Detroit, even after he made his money and became successful, stayed right there. And I respect him for that. And that's hard to do. But he's made it work. And I think he gets a lot of respect for that. And he's invested in his community. He's vested in his community. He enjoys seeing Detroit making a comeback like it's doing. gets excited, and and he knew what Detroit was growing up, and he knew what happened after a lot of the auto dealers left, and went kaput and all this other stuff, and all the jobs went to overseas. So he's been through all that, and now he's seeing the resurgence of Detroit, which is always good. Every American city you want to see be successful. And so, you can see it on his personal channel, the excitement he has describing downtown where he, has his apartment, penthouse apartment, I think he said it was, and his studio, and how safe it is, and how public transportation works, and he's just doing all these things promoting his city that he lives in. And I think that's great. I've been to Detroit. Obviously, I didn't see the Detroit that he shows us, but I have been to Detroit, and obviously it didn't look as good as it did now. I saw a pretty gritty part of Detroit when I went. The one time I did go to Detroit. And so I really respect and admire the fact that he's really about, taking care of people and treating people right and treating people with respect. And again, the thing that drew me to him was his conservative views on many subjects. I'm sure not all, but many. And again, I don't agree with him on everything. And again, I'm not watching him for relationship advice. I'm not watching him for dating advice. I'm not watching him for, the cultural stuff. Most of it, I could care less. The entertainment stuff. I do watch him for his political views. I watch his personal channel just to kind of get a little bit of a personal insight of who he is as a person. That's why I enjoy that channel the most. Of course, that's a channel he least posts to, but that's the one that I enjoy the most. His millionaire show is something I'll watch a little bit more because it has more of the political views and current events that I am interested in. It's just him. I mean, every once in a while he might have a guest, but for the most part it's just him. And he's just talking. And again, his Anton Daniels show and his After Hours show are both fairly similar. They're similar, just one's earlier and the other one's late. But they're fairly similar in what topics they talk about. The main difference is the After Hours show is, for the most part, the same group of people, the same panelists for the most part, and the Anton Daniels show is guest panelists with besides the moderator, maybe one person from the After Hours show that comes on. But for the most part, it's different guests, and sometimes they recycle some people too. I've noticed they recycle some people, but for the most part, that's a show where regular Joe like me, if we wanted to be on the show, we could be on the show. That's the Anton Daniels show. That's allowing others to, be a part, give their little, 2 cents, so to speak. And so I just like the way he conducts himself as a person, and how obviously he's all about his business. That's his main focus, is his business, and I get it, and I understand it, and I understand that's what you have to do to be successful. So I get it. There's no ill will towards that. That's his choice. He chooses to be very highly laser focused on his business, on the stuff that he's doing. And that's why he's successful. If he didn't do it, then he wouldn't be successful. So, I'm all for him doing what he does. Again, I don't agree with everything he says, but for the most part, I do. And I enjoy just an outlet. It's an outlet. I really don't have an outlet, so I created this as an outlet. To get what's in me out of me. And I like Mr. Daniels. I like the long form content. I can't do the Instagram stuff. It's just too short for me. I like long form content as well. I'm not into the shorts or anything like that. I've done a few. That's not me. I'm about long form content. So that's why I come on here and just talk. And again, everything is my opinion, my experience for the most part. That way, even if people disagree, I'm just giving my opinions and my life experiences. You have different opinions and different life experiences. It's all good. I don't have to agree. I had somebody that went back and forth with me on a topic, and I just, you draw more with honey than you do with vinegar. And so that's the approach I took with this particular person. And he was railing on me about, I think it was about Canada when we were going through that stuff initially with Canada. And obviously he's Canadian, so he didn't agree. And that's fine. You're Canadian. You should be supporting your country. I'm all for that. And he didn't agree and kind of, try to go in on me. But I didn't fall for it. I wasn't going to, go into that trap. I'm not the type of person to argue. That's probably why I'll never be on any of his channel, Mr. Daniels' channels, because I'm not an arguing type. I just don't like to argue. And so, hey, if you got a different opinion, cool. If you want to talk all day, cool, talk all day. I ain't got to say nothing. That's fine. That's just not me. And potentially to my detriment, I will admit that. But I think that for him to be so honest and self-deprecating is refreshing, and I think all of us should aspire to be that way. Because you're not leaving anything. You're not leaving anything in the unknown. Everything is out there. There is no equivocation. There is no, thinking like, oh, I wonder. No, you don't have to wonder because he's putting everything out there. So there are no, questions about what he said or what he didn't say or what he's doing or what he didn't do. It's all out there. And he has no issues with it. He understands his role. He understands what he's doing on his channels. He understands the dangers as in any social media space. And he has his boundaries. They're not many, but he does have boundaries. As any common sense human being does. So, I respect that. And I bring him up because I just think that the camaraderie he has, especially with the after show or after hour show, is really cool. I really like it. I really like how they bounce back and forth. Yeah, I get frustrated when they start talking over each other and everybody wants to talk at once, and then you got to stop what you're doing. And I understand that, but that's just the nature of that show. Sometimes Mr. Daniels will come in and hey, no, let so-and-so talk, and he'll have to come in and moderate because on the after-hour show, he's the moderator. So, for the most part, he just lets it flow. But every once in a while, he'll come in and he'll be like, no, hold on, I want to hear from this person, I want to hear from this person. Especially if they, go off into tangents. So, I think that that's something that I really want to be a part of and would love to be a part of, something in a group of people, one, that aren't judging me for who I am and appreciate who I am, but are wanting to see the best in me and bring out the best. And we do it for each other. And we're not going to always agree, and we're going to have different opinions, but we're trying to bring out the best in everybody and we understand everybody, and we understand that not everybody's going to think the same way that we do, and that we respect their opinion even if we don't agree. And I'm not saying a mouthful, and I know that's a rare thing to find these days, but that after hour shows proves that you can do that and agree to disagree and still be, in the end, at the end of the show, still be friends, still be, cool and all that other stuff. No hard feelings. What was said, and it was left on the show. Next show is a different show. And I like that. I really like that. I really admire and respect that. Again, I know he'll probably never see this video, but I respect it. He's definitely doing his thing. I respect that. I respect him doing what he needs to do. And in all honesty, I know I can learn something. With the grind that he's on and all that. I can learn something. I know on his Patreon, that's the real nitty gritty. That's where he gives all his financial advice and tips and tricks of the trade and all that fun stuff. And that's fine. I mean, you pay for it. You know you're going to get better content, of course. Now I understand that. But just watching and observing him, because that's what I do. I observe people and I watch people and I pick up things, and just watching and observing him, I've learned some things that I probably need to be doing for myself, and that I can apply to myself, even at my age. I mean, even though I'm older, I haven't made, obviously, all the right decisions and moves. Obviously, I'll be the first to admit that. And, I can improve myself, as we all should be doing anyways. And his channel and all that is one of the few channels where, even if you don't enjoy necessarily the content, especially on his two shows that were their panels, his other two channels, you actually get much more of who he is and what he's about and what he believes. I mean, of course you're going to get that in the other two shows, but I think, the other two shows are just him. And you really get much more of a personal kind of perspective on, how he is, what he thinks, what he does, those kind of things, without all the other banter and all the other opinions and all the, interruptions and all this other thing. You're just getting him. And I think that's what I enjoy the most, is just getting him. Again, I think the other two shows, can be funny and they're obviously entertaining. Obviously. I mean, that's probably the point. But, I like that camaraderie. And some of the people that are on his, especially the After Hours show, they have their own YouTube page. They have their own YouTube pages. And or they have social media accounts. Not all of them, some of them don't. Or if they do, they're private. But they have various viewpoints and various generations in those panels. And for the most part, most of the panels are black people, and 99% of the time they're black people. Every once in a while, they'll get a white person or a Hispanic, somebody who's Hispanic or Latin. But maybe not 99%, maybe 95%. I'll say 95% are probably black folk, because again, that's probably, I'm not gonna say that's who he's targeting, but that's just who is on his panels for the most part. That's a lot of the issues that they deal with or dealing with, those things. That's the community he's giving back to and where he comes from. So obviously, in my opinion, his shows are going to cater more towards the black community. has said he has obviously no issues with nobody. He's going to work with anybody, talk with anybody. When he does his personal YouTube page on the streets, talking with people, meet somebody somewhere, and he's very personable, sociable. He's not somebody that when you speak to him, he's going to just ignore you. No, he's going to talk back. He's going to greet you. At the very least, obviously if he's busy, he has to be somewhere. But at the very least, he's going to greet you. He's going to say, "I appreciate you." It's those things that you should do to be polite, and all those things. And that's just in his nature to do, as I've seen so far in some of the videos I've watched of him. And so I just came on here just to talk about that because, again, using that example, especially with his after hours show, of really how tight that group is. If you just sit and watch them, again, I don't get into all the cussing and most of the content, but if you just watch them and how they interact, there's a lot of camaraderie there. And of course, all of them have met each other in person multiple times. And he's even said that's his, if he likes you or is showing interest in you, he wants to meet you. And he wants to get to know you on a personal level so he knows who he's dealing with. Whether it be in business or personal. And I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And so, hey, I just wanted to come on here and talk about that. It was just kind of something that was on my mind. So let me just go on and talk about it, And again, you'll probably never see this video, so it really doesn't matter. But for my very few subscribers and whoever watches this, the replay, or I should say watches this video because I'm not doing it doing a live broadcast. If you watch his content, leave a comment below. What do you think about his content? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Whatever. And what do you think? What do you think about? And even leave a comment about what you think. What camaraderie looks like to you. What a tight knit team looks like to you. In the military, a tight knit team is usually a team that's been through combat, who's been through something. When you've been through something, you automatically become tight because you've all been through the same thing. And combat not only brings out the best in people, but obviously it can bring out the worst in people. But what it does is it brings folks together. I've seen it all, and so I use that because military guy. I use that to say that not since combat tour have I really had that real kind of a tight group, and the military as a whole is fairly tight. Depending on where you're stationed at, what your MOS is, and all that. There's a lot of factors, of course, but for the most part, the military we're pretty tight, especially overseas. My tour in Germany, we were tight because we were all we had. We were overseas in a foreign country. We were real tight. And so I haven't had that real tight since my combat tour and since I was in Europe. I haven't had it since. And it's really sad. And it's something that I kind of yearn for, if I'm going to be perfectly honest and transparent, because I really have had very little of it. And when I see people that have it, it's like, wow, that's one, first and foremost, that's awesome. And it's like, well, how can I get into something like that? Again, how can I re-experience that? I'm just, obviously I want to connect with like-minded people, or at least people who have respect for different opinions and experiences. You know what I mean? And so that's what I wanted to talk about. So yeah, if you got a comment about camaraderie or teamwork or Mr. Daniels, leave it down below. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Hey, share this video. If you think this is something that you enjoy, share it with somebody else. But you know, today, like I said, was just kind of it just arrived randomly off the top of my head. And sometimes I do that. Sometimes I have, planned subjects. But again, I just appreciate each and every one. I don't have many subscribers, but I appreciate everyone. I appreciate all the people who watch this and like it and comment. I appreciate you all. Because obviously you don't have to come on. And so again, I just appreciate you listening to my little rants, my little opinions. Again, because that's why I started this YouTube page, just kind of have an outlet. This is kind of my outlet. And because I don't have really people to talk to. Especially about political views. I have almost nobody I can talk to. So I use this to be able to talk my views, and without I might get some feedback, but when you don't have somebody to talk to in person who's not going to judge you for your opinions or for your views, then all you can do is basically just make a video and just talk about it. And that's what I'm doing. So again, I appreciate everyone, and until next time, we talk, God bless you.